I'm Jolene Wynn, and this is the Porn Addict's Wife podcast, episode number 170. How much detail do you need about your husband's pornography addiction? I used to think of myself as the wife of a porn addict, but I do not think of myself that way anymore, and you don't have to either. In this podcast, I am going to teach you how to manage your mind and your emotions so that you can stop living your life around your husband's pornography addiction. I am going to teach you how to stop being the victim and how to conquer his pornography addiction, even if he never does. I'm Jolene Wynn. I am a certified life coach, and I am a member of the LDS faith and the wife of a former porn addict. And this is a podcast for the Porn Addict's Wife. Hello, my ladies. Good morning. I had the best weekend, and I hope you guys did too. I want to tell you a little bit about it. So I love Christian music. I have been listening to Christian music pretty much exclusively for the last several years. And I asked for my birthday, I wanted to go to a Brandon Lake and Phil Wickham concert. And I knew this for a while, but I was like, oh, these tickets are so expensive. Maybe we shouldn't go. It's such a big hassle because we'd have to drive, a couple hours in either direction. And then I just decided, and I wanted to take my whole family. And so, of course, it was going to be a little bit more. Not that they were crazy expensive. I mean, we were in the nosebleeds. Let's be for real. But I wanted to take my whole family. So I was like, that's 7 tickets. We're probably going to have to get a hotel. This is such a big gift. Maybe we just shouldn't do it. But then eventually I decided, no, that's what I really want. So we got tickets. And so that was this weekend. So this weekend on Saturday, I took my kids to the Phil Wickham Brandon Lake concert in Norfolk, Virginia, and it was so fun. If you guys follow me on Instagram, I posted a video of when we told them because it was a surprise. And so I told them that for my birthday, I was giving them a surprise. And so we told them on Friday that we were going to leave the next day and go to this concert. And if you guys follow me, I posted about it. And my big 3 were really excited. And my little 2 were very disappointed that it was not something you could play with. They thought it was like a present, not just, an experience, but they loved it. And we had the best time. My twin sister and her family came with us as well. And so on Saturday night, we got to spend several hours just worshiping and listening to this music. It is fantastic. If you guys are looking for some good Christian artists, Phil Wickham and Brandon Lake. And it was just so powerful to be in that room. And I wanted to tell you guys a little bit about this experience, not only to share, what's going on in my life in case you care, but also to share how powerful it was for me. I have been, my husband and I have been working through so much over the last 9 months, and I have just felt the need for more healing. And there is something so powerful about putting yourself in a place where healing can happen. And that's really the main takeaway that I got from this experience, from this weekend. Hello, my ladies. How are you? I hope you guys are having a great day. I am having a wonderful day, and I am so excited to talk to you guys today about this topic. This is a question that I have seen over and over and over again, and it comes up a lot in groups, support groups, whether that's in person or online. And so I wanted to address it here. It's actually something that one of my clients brought up in the coaching call this last week. She wasn't asking about this question specifically. She was in a recovery group, a spouse support group, and this was the question. The question was, how much detail do you need about your husband's pornography problem? And she said that most of the women that were there were saying that they wanted to know all of the information, and she was sharing her experience that she has never had that desire. She has never had a desire to know all of the details. And I've seen it, and I don't have a percentage for you, but I have seen this over and over with clients, that many of my clients don't want to know any of the details, and a lot of them do. A lot of them want to know a lot of the details. And so I wanted to dive into this because it's such a great question, which is, how much detail do you need about your husband's pornography problem? And here is the fascinating thing about this question, is that it's actually the wrong question. The better question is, do you want more details about your husband's pornography problem? And if so, why? And today I'm going to go over probably the top 3 reasons that I have seen that in my clients and in my own experience of all the women that I've coached, the hundreds of women that I have coached, is as to why this happens, why we want more details, and what is really driving that desire for more information. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Now, it might be, I want you to think about if you feel like this, if you feel like you want more information, it can come in many different ways. I have had some clients who have gone and watched the videos that their husband has been watching. They look up his search history, they go and they watch those videos. I have had women who want him to recount exactly what it is that he's watching, or maybe you're more curious about when it was or where you were or what website he was on, or maybe you want to know more like what exactly he's looking at. What is it that is appealing to him, right? There are lots of different details that your brain can desire to know, and it could be different for all of you. Some of you might want to know everything. Some might just have something specific, more of like a timeline. I had a client bring that up where she's more interested in, okay, when exactly did it happen? How did you interact with me afterward, right? And so it could be that there are lots of different details that your brain wants to know. So one of the reasons, and this is the main reason that I see our brains wanting to know more of the details, whatever those details are, is in the hopes that you will then feel better. That is one of the lies that our brain believes. Our brain thinks that if we just knew more, if we just had more information, then we would understand it and then we would feel better. It would somehow relieve us from the negative emotion that we are feeling. That is not the case. Our brain thinks that there is some amount of information that we can have, some kind of detail that we are missing that will somehow solve the problem of how we are feeling. But the problem with this is that, number one, the problems that you're feeling are not a problem at all. They're just feelings and you can just feel them. And second of all, your brain is trying to do it in the wrong way. It's trying to solve what you are feeling by getting more information. Your brain thinks that if you just understood it logically, that then you would feel differently. Does that make sense? Your brain is trying to logic its way out of what you are feeling, and that is never going to work. You cannot think your way out of how you're feeling. It doesn't matter how much you understand what's going on or how much information you have or how many details you know. None of that is going to make you feel better about your husband's pornography problem. And for those of you who know a lot about your husband's pornography problem, you understand what I'm talking about. No amount of information is going to make you feel better. The only way to feel better is to actually go through the emotion, is to process the emotion and not try to think your way out of it. There is no amount of understanding that is going to change the emotional response that you feel. Does this make sense? And trying to get more details is one of the ways that our brain does this. Our brain is just trying to solve your feelings. It's just doing it in the wrong way. And once you understand that that's all it's doing, then you can sit with the desire to know more and have that be all it is. And you can just sit and say, oh, this is just my brain wanting to know more because it thinks that if I know more, I'll feel better. That if I knew exactly what was happening, then I would trust him again, right? Whatever emotion it is, maybe it's trying to solve distrust. Maybe it's trying to solve pain. Maybe it's trying to solve rejection. Whatever emotion it is that your brain is trying to solve, it's doing it completely backwards. It's trying to use your brain and gathering information to ease whatever negative emotion that you're feeling. Especially this happens with anxiety. If you're feeling anxious, your brain is trying to gather more information to ease the anxiousness, and that's never going to work. Okay, I always give this example of COVID just because to me it was so clear. Maybe it wasn't as clear to you, but to me it was such a clear example. Right when COVID hit and everyone was just glued to the news, to every article, to every TV network that was coming out with new information on the hour, every hour, and everyone was just trying as much as possible to get as much information as they could to get their questions answered in the hopes that they would finally feel relief from whatever internal turmoil they were feeling, whatever anxiety they were feeling. They were hoping that there would be some kind of answer that would ease it, and that was never going to be the case. In this situation, the information that you're learning, the details that you're learning are a circumstance. Okay, it's your thoughts about them that are creating your feelings. So no amount of information is going to change how you feel. You can't logic your way out of your emotions. And no amount of details that you know about your husband's pornography problem are going to make you feel better. You have to feel your way through those feelings. Okay, so that's the number one reason why our brain does this. It thinks it's going to make us feel better. The second reason that is so predominant is that we want to solve it. Okay. again, I brought up that I have had so many clients that have gone and looked at all the photos that their husband was looking at and watched the videos that their husband was watching in the hopes that they can somehow find maybe a type, right? Or find what it is exactly that's appealing. It's like they're trying to solve a puzzle. It's like, okay, if I can just figure out what it is that he's watching and why he's watching it, then maybe I can somehow morph myself into what I think he likes so that he can stop watching porn and I can be the solution instead. Do you guys see this? Have you guys ever done this? This is a very sneaky thought because this connects you to the pornography problem. This thinks that you are somehow connected, that if somehow you were able to figure out that maybe he likes women that are curvy, you could somehow make yourself curvier through whatever means necessary. And then that would somehow alleviate his need to go to pornography. It's like trying to solve a puzzle. So we want more details so that we can somehow try to control the outcome, somehow control his behavior and his actions. And if we could just be what we thought he wanted, then it would somehow solve all of the problem and prevent him from wanting to do this ever again. Again, this is your brain trying to solve the situation in the wrong way, trying to make you part of the equation that can solve it. But your husband's pornography problem has nothing to do with you. So even if you watch and you get all of the details and you figure out exactly what he's watching and you somehow became exactly what you think he's attracted to, there is no way that that's going to change his behavior. Why? Because you are not the reason that he's watching pornography, so you can't be the reason that he stops. And this is just a sneaky way that our brain wants to try to control it. If I just knew what he was watching, if I knew what he was attracted to, if I knew what his type was or what it is that he liked, then maybe I could somehow use that information to manipulate his behavior. And we don't usually use the word manipulate because it sounds kind of sneaky and it sounds wrong, but that's exactly what our brain wants to do. Our brain wants to take that information and use it in order to try to change the outcome. The problem here is that the outcome is the actions of another person, which we don't actually have control over. So this is a lose-lose situation, but our brain doesn't understand that. So that is the second main reason. So if you see yourself wanting to do that, just start questioning, okay, what is it that I'm hoping to find? And if you see yourself starting to do that, oh, I want to know what it is that he's looking at because maybe I can somehow change myself a little bit. Then just notice that that's what your brain is trying to do. Your brain is trying to solve it so that he stops doing it. But you are not in control or you are not responsible for his behavior. Okay. The third reason that I see our brains wanting to do this, wanting to know more of the details, especially if it's been happening for a while. This happens more of like, I want to know if he's still watching. I want to know how much he's watching, right? Our brain wants to know if he's still watching because that will tell me how to feel about him or whether or not I should leave. Okay. Now that's a little bit of a different podcast that I'll go into later, but if you want to know one of the things that we do is we base how we feel on his behavior. Okay. We want to know whether or not he's watching because we judge ourselves for being in the relationship. Okay. It's like not being comfortable with the idea of loving him and being vulnerable if he's still watching pornography. So I just need to know, because if he's not watching pornography, then I'm all in. Then I'm willing to be vulnerable. Then I'm willing to communicate. Then I'm willing to have all of this love and affection toward him. But if he's still watching pornography, then I don't want to show up this way. Then I don't want to feel all of these things. So I need to know, I need to get more information so that I know how I should feel about him. Have you guys ever seen this? This is very, very normal, but it's also just coming from the judgment that you have of yourself for loving someone, even if they're watching porn. Do you guys see this? It's kind of coming from this sneaky opposite thought of if he's watching pornography, I shouldn't be vulnerable. If he's watching pornography, then I shouldn't love him. If he's watching pornography, then I should show up differently. And we have a lot of judgment on ourselves if we show up and we are loving and caring and vulnerable and trusting, and he is watching pornography. This is why why I hound it over and over again is that the biggest difference here is doing this consciously, okay? There's a very big difference between being naive, which is the big fear here, of being naive and showing up and loving him and just sticking your head in the sand, And pretending like there's not a problem, pretending like he's not watching pornography, that is very different than saying, you know what, he could be and I don't know, but I'm willing to show up this way anyway, simply because I choose to, because that's how I want to show up. Does this make sense? You guys with me? So just notice if your brain wants to stay in there and say, okay, well, I don't think he's watching, but I don't actually know, but I really want to know because I want to know because I feel like we're in a good space, but I don't want to believe we're in a good space, and then find out later that he was watching porn because then it wouldn't be true that we're in a good place. No, that's not true at all. Him watching pornography doesn't mean you can't be in a good space. It doesn't mean you can't have positive feelings toward him. It doesn't mean you can't love him. It doesn't mean you can't trust him. It doesn't mean you have to trust him, but it doesn't mean that you can't. And when you are using his behavior to determine how you feel about him, then you're always going to want more information. It's always going to be in the back of your mind. And so what I want to offer as an alternative is that this is your opportunity to choose on purpose. This is your opportunity to say, okay, am I willing to show up the way that I want to, even if it means that I might get hurt, even if it's possible that he's still watching pornography? Okay, am I willing to be all in, even if I might get hurt in the future? And if the answer is yes, then you can show up however you want. You can love him even if he's still watching porn and you have no idea. Okay, just notice when your brain wants that information, you can start asking yourself, get really curious. Okay, this is all the coaching part. If you find yourself wanting more information, maybe it's what he was watching or when he started or what it is that he gravitates toward or where you were or whatever it is, right? When you find yourself wanting more information, just get really curious. Just start asking yourself, get rid of all the judgment. Oh, that means I'm not a good wife. It doesn't mean that it's an omen. It doesn't necessarily mean it's intuition. It doesn't mean that it is happening and this is just your gut letting you know. Maybe it doesn't mean any of that. Let's just get really curious. I wonder why I want that information. I wonder why I want more details. What am I hoping I get out of it? Let's say I do find out all of the details. How do I think this will make me feel? You guys with me? I'll let you guys know from personal experience, when my husband told me about his problems, there were, 7, 8, 9 years later, I finally asked him. I had 3 main questions, and I was going through life coach training at the time. So this was just a couple of years ago, and I had 3 main questions, and I sat there with those questions for months. I had processed all of it, and I said, you know what? I have these 3 questions, and these are what I want to ask him. And I sat there and I said, I know that the answers to these questions aren't going to make me feel better. In fact, I'm pretty sure I already know the answers to these, and I know that if the answers are what I think they are, then I'm going to feel pretty terrible. But I also knew that getting the answers to those questions was what was going to be able to make me, in the best way, force me to face all of the emotion that I hadn't yet faced and process it and move forward. And I was willing to do it. And that was the hardest weekend of my life. I asked him those 3 questions. He gave me the answers. And it was the hardest weekend up until the last 9 months. Okay. And it was terrible because it was so much emotion. And yet it was exactly what I needed. Okay. Now, if you are working with a therapist, I know there are a lot of you who work with your husband with a therapist, there is something called full disclosure. When you are working with a therapist, it is very common for you to go through something called full disclosure, where the therapist and the addict go through the history and see if they can get everything out on paper and disclose it in full to the spouse. That is a process that goes through with a professional. And if you are doing that, then that is something that is up to you, your husband, and your professional. Okay. However, again, I would just caution you against having to do this. And if you are going to do this, again, being in a place where you know how to process the emotion that's going to come up, finding out all of the information that you know. Most of you, unless you're a client of mine, don't know how to process emotions in a healthy way, okay? Because no one's ever taught you how to do it. We think we're doing it. We think we know how to do it. We're all wrong, okay? I was wrong forever, but that's okay. But just notice that there's going to be a lot of emotion that comes up, and that's all right. Give yourself permission to feel it. And that's what really is the key for all of this. When we want details, all we're trying to do is solve how we're feeling. We're just going about it the wrong way. We want the details because we want to feel better. We're trying to solve how we're feeling, solve the puzzle so that he stops watching it so that we don't have to feel the way that we do. And we don't want to feel how we feel toward him, so we want to know exactly what it is that he's doing so that we can know how to feel toward him, because how we feel toward him right now is uncomfortable, right? All of it is trying to get out of how we're feeling. When we relax and you learn how to actually embrace your emotion and you learn how to process it, then it's not something we need to get out of. So the biggest advice that I can give you, if you are struggling and you want more details and you don't know what to do, is to sit and process your emotion, to sit and allow yourself to feel all of it. And that is how you're going to finally start moving forward. All right. I love you ladies so much. I hope this is helpful for you, and I will see you guys next week on a brand new episode. So take care. All right, ladies, it's time to rise up and take charge of your healing, and I have the best way for you to do it. I have created a lifetime access coaching program that I have designed specifically for you and exactly what you're going through right now. This is where I help you develop a personal mastery of all the tools that you're learning here on the podcast in order for you to create a permanent change. Go to my website, joleneWynn.com. You will find all the information there, and you can sign up today. And we will start going forward. I can't wait to see you there.